Hello there. Right, second video on the Baofeng DM32. So just a couple of things I wanted to show you. First of all, this radio claims to have 8 watts, I think it says 8 watts power output. So we'll put it on a meter. It's a reasonably decent power meter I'm using. And we'll measure the power on high power VHF, high power UHF, low power VHF, low power UHF. Let's see what we get. Is it 8 real watts or 8 Baofeng watts? Over to the power test. We've got the Baofeng DM32 UV here. I'm just going to do a quick power test on VHF and UHF, just on high power. It's got a claimed output of 8 watts, so we'll see what the meter indicates. You can see I've got the meter there. I've got a W load sitting on top. So let's connect it all up and see what the power output is. Right, we're all hooked up now. The scale to watch is the middle scale here. That runs up to 20 watts, okay. I've got the range set to 20. We're measuring power and we're measuring forward power. So I'm just going to key up, we're on, just check that we're on a high power setting on the radio. So let's give it a key up, and we've got, well, what, about 6 watts there, I think. About 6 watts, that's on VHF. Battery is fully charged. Just taking it off charge. I'm going to key a UHF frequency in. That was 145,500. So let's go to 433,500. And there we are, we're on UHF. Let's give it a key up. We've got, well, we've actually got, according to that, we've got about 3 watts on UHF. Okay, and we are on high power. I'll just knock that down to low power. And I'll switch the range. We're on UHF low power. Switch the range to the bottom range. And what have we got there? That's about a watt, I think. About 1 watt on low on UHF. And we'll just try VHF. There is a mid-power setting, but obviously that's going to be somewhere between the two. And there we go again. And yeah, we got about a watt on low power. So 1 watt low on VHF, about 6 watts high. UHF a bit disappointing, about 3 watts out on high power. This is on a fully charged battery. Okay, well, so that power test, a little bit surprising in a way. I wasn't surprised at the VHF output. About 6 watts is probably par for the course. I wasn't expecting the full 8. Power seemed a little bit down on UHF, didn't it? 3 watts, 3 watts on high power. Not really an issue if you're using it on DMR with a hotspot or whatever, or into a nearby repeater. Maybe not going to be such an issue. But for a radio of this size, and it seems to have a fair old battery on it, maybe a little bit disappointed on UHF, but it is what it is. So let's now have a look at the programming software, the CPS software. We'll go over to the PC. I'll show you the CPS software, and we can just look at some of the things that we can alter, as well as we look at the basic programming format of the radio. Bearing in mind, there's going to be no open GD77 for this radio. It's not compatible, so you're stuck with the Baofeng firmware, which is improved over earlier Baofeng DMRs by the very fact you've got the token alias, and you've got, even from the radio itself, you've got some possibility of altering the display, the colours and so on. But we can also do that on the CPS. So let's go over and have a look at the CPS. Okay, this is the CPS firmware, or CPS software, I'm sorry, for the Baofeng DM32. So we'll just take a look at it. Now the DM32 takes a programming cable that is the same as the one that you would use to program the analog Baofengs, like the UV5. Just the standard programming cable. I'm just going to read my radio. I've got 1 zone of DMR channels programmed into this radio for use with my hotspot. So I've got the radio hooked up and we'll just read it. There's no contacts loaded in my radio. If you were to tick the digital contacts and you had contacts, it would take long. It's quite slow to read the radio anyway, so we'll leave that box unticked. I'll OK that, and you can see now that it's reading the radio. It takes a little while, and it kind of slows up about 3/4 of the way along. So I'll speed this bit up for. So we've been successful. We'll OK that, and here are our channels. We've got 10 channels in here programmed up. Now, I won't go into all of the programming. If you've done DMR radios before, it's not quite as easy as the OpenGD77. You're going to have your talk group, your color code. You're going to have to program a zone and a receive group list, and of course time slot 1 or 2. I'll go into one of these channels. Can we go into one here, and you can see the sort of functions we can control. You can control the TX power, whether the channel's on a scan list, the squelch level, which should only really be relevant if this was an FM mode channel, the contact, receive group list, color code, slot. You've got option for encryption there. DMR ID, that's your DMR ID, so I've got my own programmed into the radio, obviously. Okay, we've got a few other options, and you can see we've got some CTCSS options for analog channels down here. So those are the channels, okay, and we can look at the zones. I've got one zone, I've just called that Brandmeister, with 10 channels in it. Okay, got a scan list there. Now let's have a little look at the key functions, so we can program. We've got a number of keys we can program on the radio. So we've got a lock key, side key lock, side key 1 short. I've got that as a monitor that would open the squelch on FM. A long press on side key 1 will give us the GPS information. And on a long press on side key 2, I've got power select. I'll just, these are the options that you can assign to the keys. We can scroll down. Okay, so you can assign those to the keys as you want. And then we've got programmable keys on the keypad. And again, you know, we can program these up as we wish. So those are the key features. Now let's have a look at the DMR ID. You can have a number of DMR IDs programmed into the radio. I've just got my own one there. We've got a contact list there. Now this digital contacts field, I think this is where you would load the your contacts list. If you're not using Brandmeister or you're not using the Talker alias, you can load a list of contacts into the radio. We've got a receive group there. Okay, with the various group members added. Okay, so a look at the radio information. So we've got serial number, blank hardware version 6. Not a lot in that. Option features. So here we go. This is some programming we can do with our radio. We can auto power it off. We can have a power on message, or just display the battery voltage. I'll put on battery voltage there. Got various tones, key tones, group tones, battery low tones. We can change the display slightly here. So we can change the date display, backlight brightness, the duration of the backlight, call display, colors. Got various color options here for the various zones and channels. We can have a time display on the radio. GPS options there. Now I think if you want the GPS to work, you've got to tick this GPS switch. If you want the GPS functions to work. We've got some record functions here. Digital options, which I don't really understand the relevance of, to be perfectly honest, so I've just left those as is. Work mode. Okay. More perhaps importantly on this one, what I always do with my radios is a personal preference. I just have the single display mode. I think it's better because there's only one receiver in the radio anyway. So just have a single display mode. That's what that is under the dual watch. That gives me the single display. We've got some out timers here, Vox levels, power saving functions, mic gain levels. Might crank that up a little bit there. Look, digital mic levels. Okay. VFO scanning options. You can password protect the radio. Again, this is more of a commercial function, the lone work mode. And these are, I believe, items that we can, if we've got them ticked, and they'll appear in the radio menu. If they're not ticked, you wouldn't be able to alter them from the radio. So if you wanted to kind of lock this radio out so nobody could mess with the programming, I think we could, by unticking most, if not all of these functions, the radio would be pretty much, you know, a standalone device that you couldn't program from the radio keypad. So I think this is what this screen is all about. So you've got quite a lot of options here. Not all of them particularly useful for us with amateur radio. We can set each VFO up so that you know, we'll have one on VHF, one on UHF, for example. I've got them just as standard here. And set the TX power, whether the VFO is analog or digital, and so on. We've got the scan, we've done that, we've looked at that. So APRS again, okay. If you're into APRS, this may mean something to you. You've got an APRS menu there. And that's pretty much it. Okay, we've got various DTMF functions here as well. And an analog, 2-tone, and 5-tone. So yeah, somebody may have a use for these more as commercial functions, I think. Analog contacts, yeah, again, don't know the relevance of that, but they're there if you need them. So that is the CPS. As I say, it's not too difficult to program these channels up. You can also do a direct dial, I believe, from the keypad of the radio. Whether that will hold if you haven't actually got the contact already in the radio, I don't know. So you can see I've just got 10 contacts listed there. So maybe in another video we'll see if we can just dial up a contact that isn't even listed. This radio is primarily for use with my hotspot at home, so that's why that program is so limited. But I thought it would be interesting just to have a look at it. The CPS for the Baofeng DM32 UV, there it is. Okay, that was the quick look at the CPS. Just to remind ourselves that the programming cable for this radio is the one of these. It's like the standard cable you get with a UV5R or any analog Baofeng. Okay, that's the one we use. And the programming cable, just like all the other Baofengs, goes in the microphone and speaker port there. So although you've got a USB-C socket here, okay, so USB-C, that is for charging only. It's not for programming. Okay, just to clear that one up. Now then, we've had a look at it. What about how does this sound in use? Let's have a quick audio test. We'll use my Motorola DM3400 behind me there on DMR. We'll transmit on this, we'll receive on the Motorola, and then we'll have a look at the FM sound quality, the FM analog sound quality on the little Kenwood dual band behind me there. Okay, so let's go over and listen to the audio from this radio.
GW0KIG testing audio 1 2 3 1 2 3 on the Baofeng DM32 UV on DMR audio test 1 2 3. GW0KIG GW0KIG audio test on the Baofeng DM32 UV on 2 meters FM, 1234 4321 audio test GW0KIG.
Okay, that was the audio. Now there's various, you probably saw when I looked at the CPS that quickly we can alter the microphone gain, both on digital and on analog with this radio. To me it sounded slightly low on digital. I was on setting 3 or 4 I think, so maybe I could possibly up the microphone output a bit more on this, but it was acceptable I think. It maybe sounded a little bit thin, but it was acceptable. So that's what it sounds like. So I haven't spent a lot of time on this radio other than using it with my hotspot on DMR. So we'll take it as read that it receives airband. No, there's not an awful lot of airband activity in this area. Certainly not anything I'm going to pick up on the helical or the rubber ducky here. But it has got that function, and obviously it seems reasonably sensitive to, from what I can gather, on analog. So overall, pros and cons. Okay, overall, the DM32. I've already spoken about the form factor. It's not ideal for me. I think the radio's too bulky, but some people like it. All right. Main pro, USB charging. Okay, makes it a lot easier. You don't have to have a specific stand-in charger. Don't even have to have a specific charging lead. Any USB-C lead, and you can charge your radio. So that's great for convenience. Quality construction seems pretty good. Seems quite robust. I think it would survive a fall, survive some heavy use. So that's a plus. The firmware it's running, although it's not upgradable, so there's going to be no question of OpenGD77, which I really like, but it's better than most of the Baofeng DMR firmware that I've seen. Programming isn't too bad. It's pretty much your average sort of DMR radio to program. But in terms of the talker alias, if you're using Brandmeister, that's great. So you don't have to worry about loading a contacts list. You can select talker alias and you'll get the call signs coming up. It's also got a promiscuous feature built in. So, when you've set that, if you're listening to, say, your hotspot at home, any transmission that comes through, irrespective of talk group, will come through on the radio. So that's very useful. So it's little things like that. They are the pros. You've got a colour screen. Now, some people would say that, that's a pro. The screen's invisible. It's not, this radio is not unique for that, but this screen is invisible in bright sunlight. Even sort of even on a semi-bright day, it's hard to read. It's fine indoors in a room like this, where I've actually got the light on because it's a little bit gloomy today. Display is going to be absolutely fine. I'll see how well the camera picks it up. We'll just, okay. So that's fine in this light. But take this outside on a bright day, no. So that's a con in my opinion, and you can't you can increase the brightness of the screen, but this screen's on full brightness, and even then, okay, it doesn't work outside. So that's a bit of a con. What else? Like I say, it's not upgradable to OpenGD77. Lots of radios aren't. It's not bad. It's low cost at the end of the day, so just over £40 UK delivered this radio, so it's good value. The RF output on UHF seems a little bit lower than I expected, but it's going to be adequate. So if you don't mind the form factor, and you want a robust radio, I mean, you've got the speaker on the rear there, which is unusual, but there does seem plenty of audio output from it. And I think if you spent a little bit of time playing around with the microphone gain settings, you'd probably get slightly better audio than I demonstrated on this video. But even, what you heard on this video was acceptable. It's not a bad radio. It's not, I mean, I've seen other reviewers say it's like a game changer and it's amazing, and no, I wouldn't say that. My preference would still be the DM1701 with the Open GD77 firmware on it. I would rate that above this radio. But what this has to offer above the 1701 is a USB-C charging. If I could get a USB-C battery for my 1701, I think that would be preferable. What we really need is a radio with the kind of functions that this has, but with a monochrome LCD display that you could read in sunlight if you want to use the thing outside. If you're using it indoors, doesn't matter, it's fine. So that was my thoughts on the DM32 UV. There is an identical looking analog radio, the UV32, which I think is programmable via Bluetooth. This one is not. I'm not going to be rushing out to buy that because, again, like I said, I don't really like the form factor of these radios. But if you don't want the DMR functionality, but you like the look of this radio, the UV32 could be for you. And, of course, it's a little bit cheaper than the digital version. All right. I hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.